Jesse Allen here, and joining us once again this week, retail product agronomist for Brevant Seeds, Tony Johansson. Tony, great to have you back on the show here this week. Thanks for making some time.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll try round two.
Yeah, hey, let's run through this and talk about looking at next season. We're rolling through harvest, here across the country, and we're gonna start thinking about 2022. But what can farmers learn from this year's crop that's gonna help them choose their hybrids for 2022, Tony?
I think guys need to kind of take a step back and start evaluating kind of what their risk levels are for 2022. Are you a grower that's very progressive, that is willing to plant some of the what I would call riskier hybrids that have some issues that we can manage versus the guys that are going to play a little more conservative, uh, plant your stable products that you know are going to be there every year. As we spent this past year evaluating products, the main reason I bring that up is we had quite a few wind events come through here where we saw a lot of green snapped corn, not so much in our Brevant portfolio, but in some of these competitors. And as these retail sellers are out there trying to sell seed to their producers, it gives Brevant an opportunity to help them diversify the portfolio and eliminate some of that risk that some of these producers have for their operations next year. The other thing is we learned this year that fungicides are a big part of the big part of the package that I just think needs to become a standard practice. As we've seen some of this corn here that's getting harvested, it's drying down at an extremely rapid pace. The growers that did not spend the money on fungicides, they've been pulling into some of these fields where they're picking 112, 13-day corn that's already down to 9% or not 9, 13% moisture. Um, we need to keep that plant healthier and alive a little bit longer because you can't get all your beans and your corn harvested at the same time. So guys need to take a step back, evaluate their operations, their risk levels, and get a good plan for 2022.
Well, now I know a lot of parts of the Corn Belt saw drought this year. Your area of East Central Nebraska, that wasn't the case. But what were some other issues maybe you saw throughout the growing season that could have an impact for farmers in your area going into next year?
Well, on the soybean side, um, just like the corn, we did see a lot of disease creeping in late. Our cool, wet Junes led for a pretty good disease host. White mold really started rearing its ugly head. We get into some of these fields here late August, early September. Producers are wondering why their crops are dying off. You start actually diving in. This white mold has been kind of a real deal for us. So it comes down to product selection, management, trying to find fungicides that have some suppression or able to control white mold. So these guys got to look at multiple approaches to control some of these diseases. It's no longer the days where guys go plant it, go spray it with Roundup, and wait for the combine to roll through. With high price fertilizer, chemicals, cash rents, everything else that goes into putting a crop in, these guys need to spend more time actually uh, looking at ways to uh, control their yields and increase yields to help offset some of these increased prices.
Well, what are some things that farmers need to be discussing with their retailers as we get into this fall and into the winter, Tony?
Well, some of the big things I'm starting to look at is last year we learned coming out of a drought, guys did not spend the money on fertility. And I know fertilizers have gone up in price here this next year. Guys need to take a step back and think about what they're going to be doing long term. I hate guys that are going to cut back on their fertility, cut back on their herbicide applications. I know there's a lot of supply chain issues that are starting to come up. I can't stress enough the fact that if you want to grow it, you got to feed it. I used the analogy with a customer yesterday. I said, "Are you going to change your dry fertilizer program?" He says, "Yep." And I said, "So that's just like eating breakfast in the morning. If you don't eat breakfast, you're going to have a bad start to the day." I said, "You got to feed it." And then I said, "You going to cut back your nitrogen?" He goes, "Well, I'm thinking about it." So that's kind of like your lunch. If you don't have a good nitrogen program underneath that, that plant's going to struggle towards the end of the day. Just like when you see these plants struggle towards the end of fall, they start dying off quick. They start having stock cannibalization issues. I can't stress, don't change your practices that you've been doing the last couple of years just because you see it dollars and cents, because it comes down to ROI at the end of the day. If you don't produce a crop, you don't have much to market. So that's the biggest thing. What we can do with Brevant is we talk about plant populations. We pick hybrids that will respond to lower populations, changing up your management styles. I talked the other day about, are we going to plant a racehorse hybrid, or are we going to plant something that's very stable? And then the biggest thing on soybeans is I started looking at herbicide options. The supply chain is really going to be hectic in terms of getting herbicides to the market, not knowing what options you have. At Brevant, we're solid on the Enlist portfolio. So we're giving guys options when they go to post spray with a Liberty as a glufosinate product, a Roundup, and a Enlist option, which is your Colex D24D. So we've got options for guys as you start looking at some of the tightness within these herbicide issues.
Tony, where can farmers get more information about Brevant?
But you can go on to Brevant.com. If you go into an Apple or a Google store, we've got a Brevant Plantability app in there that guys can download to learn how to manage each hybrid. And then, of course, any of your local retail seed suppliers that are Brevant supporters will be able to help you out.
Again, Brevant.com is a great way to find those locations and find out more about Brevant Seeds. With that, Tony J. Hansen with Brevant Seeds. Appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us here on Market Talk.